we have to remember whatever you pay attention to grows, okay? So we need to pay attention to our physical side, our emotional side, and our spiritual side. All of those three things, they all go together, they all overlap. You can't just pay attention to your physical fitness and ignore your emotional side. You can't just pay attention to your spirituality and ignore your physical fitness. Like they all go together. And I think when we are our best version of ourselves, we show up as our best for our partners.
Welcome to the Daniele Hage Podcast. I'm your host, Daniele Hage. Daniele is my mother-in-law and Nini to my three girls. She is pastor, speaker, and founder of Dynamic Traits. She has over 40 years experience in family and marriage relationships. She's been married to Steve Hage for 43 years, who travels the world preaching the gospel, and together they pastor a church in Laguna Niguel, California. So welcome, Daniele.
Thank you.
So your tagline across all your dynamic traits and everything you teach is bringing out the best.
Yeah.
So today I want to ask you a question. And maybe go into another area that you talk a lot about, but maybe we haven't talked about on the podcast, but I know you're very passionate about this. So I want to ask you, what are a few daily habits that you think everybody should be doing to bring out not only the best in their relationships, but in themselves as well?
Okay, well, that's an easy one. Because yes, I am passionate about that. And I think that we have to remember whatever you pay attention to grows, okay? So we need to pay attention to our physical side, our emotional side, and our spiritual side. Yeah. All of those three things, they all go together, they all overlap. You can't just pay attention to your physical fitness and ignore your emotional side. You can't just pay attention to your spirituality and ignore your physical fitness. Like they all go together. And I think when we are our best version of ourselves, we show up as our best for our partners. And so I think paying attention to ourselves is absolutely necessary for our relationships. And so I would say, what do you want to grow? I want to pay attention to my physical fitness, my health, because I want to grow in health. I want to be healthy. So I think, something that we need to daily do, and these are some of the things that I have incorporated into my life, basically my whole life, starting with physical fitness. That's the first thing I do in the morning. And I know a lot of people will say, no, you can't leave your house before you have your quiet time with God. I know, but if I don't get my physical fitness in first thing in the morning, I'm probably not going to get it in. And then I'll have my God time later, afterwards. So, and I've been doing that literally my whole adult life. And so even when my kids were little, I got up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning before it was time to get them ready for school. If my husband was home, sleeping, so that I could get in my exercise before school, because I knew I had to get it done first thing. So I think that you need, when it comes to physical fitness, you need to find an activity that you enjoy, that is fun for you. I know people that'll say, I don't want to move. I don't like moving. I don't like exercise. I will never step foot into a gym. Some people, they're not into weightlifting. They're not going to go to the gym. That's fine. You got to find what you like. It could be swimming, dancing, walking, biking, hiking, whatever it is. There's so many different classes these days, the bar classes, yoga classes. Just find something that you enjoy and do it every single day, or at least 3 to 6 times a week, I would say. I know some people say, you only need to work out 3 times a week. No, I literally do something active. I would say something active minimum 6 days a week. But that's just me. But I like activity. And I do all kinds of things. I get bored easily. I have a short attention span. So I'll do something for a couple of years and I start getting bored with it and I have to change it up. So, I'll start doing a yoga class. I'll do that for a while and I have to change it up. Yeah. I start going to Orange Theory, or, it just depends. I bike, I paddleboard, you just find things that you really enjoy. Because if it's something you hate doing, there was one thing over the years, I know for me, I started going to CrossFit. And again, that is a type of weightlifting, cardio exercise, which I've always done, but it's like having a personal trainer. And so I got my youngest daughter and I said, hey, let's go join CrossFit. and see just for something different. And she loved it. My young starter Taylor at that time loved it. She was an adult. And I had never hated going to work out more in my life than when I went to CrossFit. It was so hard for me.
Thing.
It was so hard for me. I was afraid I was going to get hurt. It was hard. It's Olympic lifting. And I thought at my age, and this was probably 10 years ago, I was probably in my 50s. I thought at my age, why do I need to be doing Olympic lifting? And I know there's a lot of people my age that go. It just wasn't my bag of chips. It wasn't my thing. So she kept on with it, and she still does it today. And I'm like, I'm going to go back and do the other things I like because I didn't want to quit exercising altogether, but I didn't like that. Yeah. So how about you? Is there anything particular that you find you enjoy doing every day as far as an activity?
Growing up as an athlete, and then after having kids, I realized I have to have this in my life every single day. And maybe you can talk a little bit about this too, the crossover between physical, emotional, and spiritual. For me, I was having such an emotionally hard time after having 2 kids under 2 that once I started CrossFit. I found CrossFit right after I had the 2 right away. And it helped me out so much emotionally. Yeah. And I was so much better showing up at home as a mom and a wife and a friend. Once I found that, now I've evolved over the years. I mean, same thing. Every couple of years, it's like, okay, let's try something new. Yeah. But the things that have always been consistent, if I can't get a gym workout in during the day or I'm between certain gyms, I'm always walking, especially after being 40. I think walking is like something every woman needs to add in. And what's nice about walking is I grew up walking with my mom every night after dinner. Great conversations always happened then. And the girls are old enough now where they can walk with me. And we have dogs. They need to be walked. Right. But I just feel like sometimes one of my daughters, especially when she has a hard time getting some of her words out, it's like, let's go for a walk. And because we're not looking at each other, we're not staring at each other, I'm not asking her questions like, what's going on? What's in your life? Da, 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 da. Walking in the activity really does help us to also have that connection
side
in our
by
relationship.
Side. Mm-hmm. That's a great
Christian
idea.
and I did a challenge a few years ago, and we walked for 75 days straight after dinner every single night. And honestly, that was probably one of the best and most healing times of our marriage.
Wow.
Because again, we're around activity. We're not staring at each other in our eyeballs, making it awkward. We had to walk for about 45 minutes, and it got in a couple miles, and we had some of the best conversations because it was just that time to be together.
And see, they cross over. So you're getting physical activity, but emotionally you're getting needs met because you're having connection time with your husband, with your children. And that is so important. To me, it all goes together. I know not everybody likes physical activity or exercise, but I know for me emotionally, I need to get that in or I'm off. I'm just off balance. And remember, a need is something that you basically are off balance or unwell if you don't get that need met. A want is you're going to be okay. It's a want. It's not a need. And so
it's probably fleeting.
Yeah. And so for me, physical activity, physical exercise is something that's always been very, very important to me. And then the other part of staying healthy is, have your yearly exams and all that kind of stuff, but, just how you eat. You have to, everybody has a pretty good idea of what healthy eating looks like. We just don't always do it. We're not always as disciplined with ourselves. And I know there's tons of different ways of eating. There's vegan and keto and paleo and all the stuff. You got to find out what works for you, what works for your body. And there's so much information out there to figure out what is best for your body. So find out and do that. Because if you let yourself go, especially, when you're single and you're looking for a partner, you're keeping yourself up because you want to be, look really good, and be physically attractive. And then a lot of times after marriage, I hear that a lot of women, or I see even a lot of women will let themselves go because they think I've got my protector provider now. I don't have to try that hard. And then they let themselves go and they gain a lot of weight. And sometimes men do too after marriage. And some say, oh, it's happy weight. But I heard this one conversation with a counselor and a woman, and she said, we're going to get a divorce, and I just don't want to be single again because that means I'm going to have to lose weight. So you kept yourself up when you were single, but you won't keep yourself up as a married woman. That's a no-no. That's a big no-no because you have to remember, ladies, men are very visual. And yes, women are too, but not as much as men, okay? Men are visual and they need to be visually stimulated, and your body is visually stimulated. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be certain measurements or a certain size, but you want to just look the best for you. Yeah. And, I heard one person say, beauty is doing the best with what you have, okay? Not everybody's got the complete symmetrical face or the exact right proportions, but doing the best with what you have. And you have to remember, your husband was attracted to you in the beginning for the exact size and shape and proportions that you were. And so it's not like you will always stay that way, because I know having children changes things. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not being perfect. It's just doing the best with what you have, basically.
Yeah, feeling good in your skin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely not the same size and weight that I was when we got married.
Right.
Christian's actually asked that I not be that size and weight.
Were you much thinner?
Yeah.
You were way
before
thinner.
Kids.
Yeah.
But
You're
I
still
think,
thin.
But I think, exuding the confidence, knowing that I need that physical activity to help my emotional activity. So if I'm happy, then he's happy. And the other thing you've always taught is don't point out our flaws.
Yes.
They are visual, but they're also single focused.
Yes.
So after having babies, if I point out, whatever it is, he will focus on that instead of the body shape. I mean, I've been all shapes and sizes since being married and having 3 children, up and down, left and right. And he's never complained about any of it, but as
Smart
long
man.
as well, and I think because I do, no matter where I'm at in my healthy eating or postpartum or whatever, I've tried, I've tried to eat healthy.
Yes.
I've tried to, but enjoy my life as well, and not complain, and just always constantly be striving for health, not necessarily a look.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. Because you're intimate and you start to see each other and you kind of notice your partner maybe needs to work on their physical activity a little bit.
Yeah.
How can you have that? Is it appropriate to have that conversation? Does just you kind of taking it on and leading by example help in a marriage relationship? But I've heard that too. Women will be like, oh my gosh, okay. He is just like become couch potato.
Right.
20 pounds of snuck on, and he doesn't seem to
It doesn't bother
care.
him. Because
Yeah.
and men are not as sensitive about how they look compared to women. Okay, some men are really, really into it, but generally speaking, they're just, men can go up to other men and high five them and say, "Hey, you big fat cow," and laugh it off. If you said that to a woman, they'd be like, what? I mean, right? Yeah. Like guys just aren't as sensitive. I know there was a time in my marriage, my husband, when we first got married, health and fitness were always a very big value to both of us. And he knew that I was an aerobic instructor. Back then they called it aerobics. Now they call it a group fitness instructor. But that was always something that was a big value to me. And at the time, I don't think he was lifting weights or anything. But I think starting to date me, he started getting into it. And then he got into the whole fitness thing. And he's all or nothing. He goes all in or he doesn't do it at all, And then he started really getting muscles and getting big. And I liked that. And then we went through a period where he quit going to the gym, and I don't remember why, but he just wasn't going. And I always loved his arms and chest, but they started getting really skinny. I remember one time, as kindly as I could, I just said to him, honey, women are kind of visual too. And he was like, what? I go, it's just, I love you. Unconditionally, but I noticed your arms have gotten a little thin from how they used to be. And it like 2 days later, he was back in that gym, and we laugh about it now. And the way he tells the story is completely different. He goes off on me, but I said it nicely, and we laughed. He wasn't upset about it, but I just hinted that we're a little bit visual too. And we had said in the beginning, like he came from an obese family, And I didn't. And I just said, that's never going to work for me. Just want you to know. And his dad died of heart disease and letting himself go. And his mom died really young at 30 years old of another type of disease. And I said, you don't have a great history genetically. So you're going to have to stay healthy and keep yourself up. And he was in total agreement. And I don't think he's ever stopped going to the gym since then. But there's been times in and out over the years. We've been, we're going on 44 years where he's gained and lost. There was one time where I don't know why.
But
maybe
he's never stopped working out his arms.
yeah. And maybe it was a stress thing at the time. But I remember a buddy of his that he hadn't seen in a while. He went to see him, and his friend is just very blunt and brutally honest. And I love that. And I was like, he said it, I didn't. And he looked at him and he goes, Steve, he goes, you're fat, man. And Steve, again, you know how guys are, that he just started laughing. And he goes, yeah, I have gained some weight. And because of that comment, it made an impact on him. Yeah. But I was thankful that somebody else said it and not me. And then he definitely started working on it and lost the weight. But I think for any man that's watching, for a woman, because we're a lot more sensitive about our bodies, and we're very harsh on ourselves. Yeah. We're way harder on ourselves than any man would be on us. And so it's a very, very delicate, fragile situation. And I think for a wife, saying to the man, let's stay healthy. Do you want to do something together? Do you want to start
walking
or something? But I'm concerned because I just want you to be healthy, and I want you to be around a long time. Mm-hmm. And I want us both to be fit for so that we can keep up with our kids. And that was always a concern to me too. I thought I want to be snow skiing and teach my kids to snow ski. I don't want to be fat and lazy when they get to that age. I want to be able to do these fun things with them also. So I think you can have that conversation just kindly, and compassionately. And for men talking to women, I think you need to be very, very careful. And it needs to be, I love you and you are beautiful to me no matter what. Mm-hmm. But I just want us to stay healthy. I want us to both to be healthy. Let's do something together, and find a way to talk about it, but just with compassion. Yeah. And be sweet and be kind.
That's so good.
Yeah. And don't make fun and don't mock her body. That'll bring the worst out of a woman. Criticizing her body in an unfavorable way will bring the absolute worst out of her.
That's good.
All right. So yes, staying physically active, physically healthy to the best of your ability. Again, we're not saying you have to be perfect. Nobody is. And then the next thing is you need to pay attention to how you are emotionally. And again, this is probably a bigger deal for women than it is men, because although I think men definitely need to have a safe space with their partner to be able to express emotions, to be able to make themselves vulnerable and talk about how they're feeling. Yes, most men have been taught from an early age, to shut it down, shut it off, don't cry, don't show emotion, hold it all in, which isn't healthy. It's not healthy for either gender at all. But I know the comments I get from men, they're so afraid of making themselves vulnerable to their woman because they have said that women will use it against me. And that women will say, my wife will say that I'm weak. And I think that is so sad. And I think that's a very immature woman that would do something like that to her man. And I know that the reason, I think for a woman, when a man lets his guard down and talks about his fears or talks about, it's anything that's a little bit negative, it might scare the woman because, this is her big knight in shining armor, protector, provider, hero, and now he's having a moment and he's emotional or he's sad and being vulnerable. A lot of people men go straight to, oh, you want me to have to cry? It's not just about crying and showing that kind of emotion, but it's talking about your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your inadequacies, your insecurities. It's facing your fears, and that takes strength. That takes courage to do that. And it takes bravery and courage to be vulnerable, because when you're being vulnerable, both men and women, you're unzipping yourself and you're saying, here's the real me. And you might even be saying, here's the parts of me I don't like. Here's the parts of me I want to change. What do you think about these parts of me? And it's scary because you can't predict the outcome. Are they going to accept you or reject you? And if you want to be a safe place for one another, you just need to be there, be present, and listen. Yeah. You don't need to even comment. You can just listen and just say, okay, wow, that's how you feel. And you feel the way you feel, and your feelings are real. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to feel that way. It doesn't mean you're going to stay there in fear or insecurity forever. You're just maybe having a moment, and you're sharing it with the one person that hopefully you feel the safest with in the world, that's got your back. And that's what a partnership is. That's what a marriage is. So hopefully we can develop the maturity to be able to deal with one another's, the parts that aren't so pretty, the parts that are less favorable, I guess. So, but being able to express your emotions, manage them, manage your anger, manage your fears, manage your hurt, and not flying off the handle and going crazy and going hysterical and doing all that stuff, but be able to express it, manage it, and to engage with other people when they're having emotions or talking about them. That's called emotional maturity. That's called, emotional intelligence, basically. And that's something that we all grow in and that we all learn as we go. And the safer we feel, the easier it is to do. Yeah. So that's the goal in having a partnership and a marriage.
As a woman who's grown in her relationship and grown in that emotional intelligence, are there some daily things or books or podcasts or, how have you grown in that emotional intelligence? Has it been through relationships with other women?
Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot of information, especially right now. I'm seeing so many things on social media and different books. In fact, I just ordered a book I think it's called Emotional Intelligence. There must be more to it. I don't remember. But I thought, that looks interesting. I want to see what that's about, to see what other, experts would say about that. But I think being able to engage, express, and manage are the things that we need to get to. And I think we learn by doing. So even though it might be scary, and if you can't do it with your partner, like for a man, find a guy friend. Find a community of men who have like values where, there's all kinds of men's groups, in churches and even outside of churches but you want to get in a group of people that have like values and are like-minded, that are going to support you in that. But, going to a man, talking to a man that you respect and you admire, you look up to, and that you can feel like you can let down and really share those inward emotional things with. I think that is a healthy way to do it. What is unhealthy is just pushing it down, because it's going to rear its head in the most unlikely moments. Yeah. And so I think it's important to either, if you have a hard time expressing verbally, write. It's write your stuff down. And if it's stuff that you never want anybody to see, maybe write it down, wad it up, and throw it away. It's like, but you're getting it out of here onto paper. And I've heard people say that's one of the best ways to get stuff out of your head and to get clarity on what's going on inside is the written word. And not even just typing, but there's something about actually writing it down with a pen and paper. And I don't know all the psychology behind it. And I think maybe when you are in that safe place, they say that people do their best evolving and growing in a safe relationship. So whatever relationship you feel safe in, practicing talking about feelings and fears and dreams and hopes and desires, all of those things would be a healthy way to start.
Do you feel like men who have a strong male or group of men in their life are emotionally more intelligent within their relationship with their wife? So is that something as a wife we need to encourage them to have those strong male relationships and be in a group of men?
I do believe that. And my husband has a men's group. They meet, like quarterly. Well, they all get together and they have barbecues and they talk about real stuff. And they meet every weekend through a Zoom call on Saturday mornings. And anybody can be a part of it. And these guys get down and dirty. And they say what happens in the men's group stays in the men's group. Yeah. But I just know, and my husband doesn't give me details, but he will talk how some men let down and are crying, and I mean blowing their, like snot crying, like blowing their noses, and they're just there for each other, supporting one another, not to judge or condemn one another, but they encourage each other and uplift each other. My husband just this past weekend took our grandson, and he'll be 14 this month. And he said, "Do you want to go to the men's meeting?" And it was a barbecue one. And now he's a little young to be getting into the too heavy stuff. But, I thought it was so great. And my grandson wanted to go. And he took him and they kind of went around and said, this is the one thing he did share with me, like, what do you need prayer for? Mm-hmm. And so they came to my grandson and he said, "Kaden, what do you need prayer for?" And he said, you could pray for my grades. And it was just so cute. It's like, that's where he's at.
But normalizing
Yes.
that it's okay to have those strong
men
male relationships that
talking
can
to
also be
men.
vulnerable.
And and this is just the beginning for him. But as he gets in his teenage years, I hope he'll keep going and feel like there's other men in his life besides his dad, together that he can have conversations with, or at least talk to somebody if he's having some kind of issue. So yeah, I think that's really healthy and very, very important.
Yeah.
Now, if you get in with men, if men get with men that start bad-mouthing women or bad-mouthing your wife, or don't like women and they have those issues, I don't think that would be a good situation. Another part of getting your emotional needs met is connecting with the people that are most important to you in your life. Like for me, I need to connect with my kids, my grown children, weekly. It used to be every single day, but now I don't want to bug them. So, but like I need to have a conversation or just check in with them, and sometimes it's a couple times a week. Other times, because, my one daughter works with us, so we pretty much talk regularly, and I'm, and she's got kids, and I'm the grandparent, and we live close by, so I watch her boys a lot. So we connect on a regular basis. But like, and now that I'm podcasting with my son and my daughter-in-law, I see them monthly, and we talk frequently throughout the month. And then my youngest daughter, she just had a new baby. And so I'm checking in with her, almost daily now, like, how's it going?
Yeah.
Brand new mommy. Everything okay? Do you need anything? But I think connecting with the people that are most important to you, I talk to my parents, on occasion, just checking in on them. They're much older now. And I think that's important, just to, I don't know, just having those little conversations with family members or best friends, girlfriends, guy friends, just whoever is important to you, reaching out and connecting. I think that's really important. And then something else I think is a good daily habit, and most people have heard of this by now, but maybe writing down things that you're grateful for every single day. And if not every day, every other day, but just, some people say the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is before I get out of bed, I start just naming off things I'm grateful for. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not that disciplined because I think I said I get up first thing in the morning, alarm goes off, bam, dressed, into the gym before I can even think about anything else so that I don't miss my workout. Mm-hmm. I don't let anything else get in the way of that. But on a regular basis, especially if you start to feel down or discouraged or negative, start thinking about what is good about that situation. When it comes to your partner, there's times when we can get really down on our partners or negative or feel bad around them, or they make us feel bad or whatever. If you stop yourself and say, wait a minute, but what do I appreciate about them? What do I respect about them? And, if you start making a list, I guarantee your list of what you appreciate and respect and admire them for will be way longer than the little tiny things that bug you about them. Hopefully, the positive list will be way, way longer. But if you think about it, just write down and say out loud the things that are good in your life, the things you're happy about, the things you're thankful about. Thank God for the different things in your life. And if you think, well, I got nothing. And I will say I call BS on that, okay? Just the fact that you woke up this morning and you're breathing is something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that we can be grateful for that sometimes we just,
for granted.
Yeah, we take it for granted, and we just expect it will happen again the next day. Mm-hmm. And, you hear it said all the time, life is short. You hear about people who just drop dead and that you never saw it coming. And, I forgot to tell them. Oh, I didn't tell them or give them that last hug or whatever. So I think that's something that is a good daily healthy habit that we can all incorporate.
That's good.
And then again, of course, these things all cross over. Mm-hmm. But when spiritually speaking, I think we need to pay attention to our spirits, body, soul, and mind, right? Mm-hmm. Our spirit is very important. Our soul is important. Our soul is made up of your mind, your will, and your emotions. So all of that, they all bleed over into one another. But connecting with your maker, connecting with your creator, whatever God that you serve or that you believe in or that you pray to, for me, it's Jesus. Mm-hmm. But I'm not here to convert you, whatever your faith is. But I think knowing that you have a higher power, there is a higher power. We didn't get here all by ourselves. And connecting with your maker through the word of God, through the hearing of the preaching of the word, your own daily prayer time and reading of the word is a very healthy spiritual habit that you can do. And, for me, God is my life compass. So that's something that, I have a daily conversation with God, through prayer or reading his word. And I think that's just healthy. And again, whatever your higher power is.
Yeah.
So,
connecting daily.
Yeah. So what about you? As far as physically, emotionally, spiritually, are there any of those things that you feel like that you need to develop, or that you already have on a regular basis that you've developed in your life?
I feel like the connection between spiritual and emotional, when you were talking about, being vulnerable with your spouse, I found and continue to remind myself that when my husband's vulnerable and he shares the load that's heavy and he doesn't yet have a solution to some of life's problems,
Right.
I can either be scared and feel unsafe as a woman, but I realize that when I do feel that way, one, I start to get nitpicky. I start to act angry that he doesn't have the solutions, and I feel like he should have the solutions. But I realize that I'm not trusting God. I'm not trusting God that he's our provider, that he's talking to my husband, that he's got a vision and giving it to my husband. It's so much more easy for me to truly submit and be the helpmate that my husband needs when I can give it to God. There was a conversation we had in the last few months, and it left me feeling scared, anxious for the future. And I just had to keep giving it to God.
Yeah.
God, he is your son.
Right.
You are talking to him. I know he's seeking you. The other thing too is really supporting those guy-on-guy relationships. There's things that Christian's dad can say to him, or a couple of Christian's best friends can say to him, that I could never say to him. He's going to take heed to it a different way.
Right.
He's not going to feel nagged. He's not going to feel mothered if a man says it to him.
Right.
I had a girlfriend once who, as soon as she got married, she flipped the switch. Oh, I know my husband used to be so close to his dad, but now it's me. And I'm like, whoa. You need to rethink that. Before you go into these childbearing years, you are going to want your husband to maintain that good relationship with a strong man in his life to get you through. You are not his end all be all.
Right.
We've talked about that too, just the different connections that we all need. We all can't meet each other's every single need.
Right.
So I think all of it is always a work in progress.
Yes.
And like you said, it's always bleeding into one another.
Yeah.
If I'm not physically good, I'm not emotionally good.
Yeah.
When I'm not emotionally good, there's probably something spiritually that's not good. So all of it needs to be touched and managed and felt every single day.
And, there's no shame in getting help and talking to somebody. I think people that have a basically good, healthy self-esteem, they do want to take care of their physical being. They do want to take care of their bodies. They do want to take care of themselves emotionally and get their emotional needs met, meeting their own needs that they can, and, and meeting and helping to meet others as far as it's up to them. But if like people who don't like themselves or are dealing with shame or guilt or unforgiveness, all of those things can kind of chip away at our self-esteem, and it leads right into everything else in our life. So, there might be a root cause of something in your life that you don't even know. Like we were talking the other day about trauma, and there's so much stuff about trauma going around right now. It's kind of the new, maybe it's not new, maybe it's just new to me, buzzword, but and it's like for what I'm learning, and I don't know enough yet, but there could be trauma that happened in our childhood that we're acting out now, and it's related to that trauma that happened in our childhood that we don't even remember happened, or we don't even know that was considered trauma. And that's what I'm learning. It's like, wait, was that considered traumatic? Because I don't, like, if you ask me what trauma happened in your life, I'd be like, nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think I have it, but there probably is.
Yeah, sometimes it's just something that somebody has said to you.
Yeah.
And you think at the time you're blowing it off, but what happens is we create this story in our head. And we start to internalize, and that just becomes the play tape that we play over and over and over again in our brain. And the reason why the Bible says take every thought captive is because those thoughts, especially when they're negative, create new neural pathways in our brain. And it's a lot easier for a negative thought to create a neural pathway than it is positive or grateful thoughts.
Yeah.
So we have to take them captive when it's right here in the forefront of our brain, and do whatever we need to do with it. Pray it away, give it to God. Because once we start creating those divots in our brain, then those negative thoughts can just fly down
and
that
get
way.
bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not even be true. It might not even be a true thought.
Absolutely.
And when you take those thoughts captive, the Bible says you submit them to the Word of God. Like, what do you do with those negative thoughts? You have to say, wait a minute, does the way I'm thinking line up with the Word of God? Does it line up with what God says about me? Like, I don't like me, or I'm fat, or I'm ugly, or I'm unacceptable, or I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy. You know, whatever thought, whatever story you've made up in your mind about yourself, if it's negative, do you know that's not from God? Yeah. That's not lining up with what the Word of God says, because the Word of God says that you have great value, that you are perfect in His eyes, that you're forgiven, accepted, not rejected, that you're completely worthy, completely lovable, not unlovable. So we have to, and that takes a discipline. Like keeping our thoughts in line takes discipline.
I had to get professional help over some things that were said to me that I didn't realize I had taken heed to and
made up your own story about.
Yeah. And so getting help in that way. But I think too, what you said about practicing that daily gratitude, I have found that my husband's so good about being grateful and expressing his gratitude. But when I can get the words out, that's when doors open.
Yes.
That's when peace rises.
Yes.
That's when forgiveness happens, when we can be grateful. And it doesn't mean that we're not striving for the next or working towards, but being grateful for where
what you have now,
what we have now, where our children are now, and finding joy in that.
Right.
The other thing about the emotional and all of this fitting together is when I'm happy and I'm content, our home environment is so different.
Yeah.
It's so peaceful. My husband is at peace. He's able to work a lot harder. He's able to concentrate on what he needs to concentrate when he's not worried about my emotional health and my emotional well-being. And when he feels like, babe, you got it. You are rocking this.
Yeah.
It feels good when I come home at the end of the day and you have just slayed the day. I know it's hard.
Right.
You know, and he acknowledges it.
Yeah.
I know it's hard. I know you're dealing with a lot. I know you've got all these kids with all these schedules. And I appreciate him expressing his gratitude. But when he feels like I've got it and I'm happy and I'm good physically, emotionally, and spiritually, he's like, can slay the day.
And you know why that is? Because it weighs on a man if his wife is unhappy. It weighs on him. He's not happy when you're not happy. And there is some truth to happy wife, happy life. And I know other people say happy spouse, happy house, which absolutely we want both partners to be happy. Yeah. It weighs on you if he's not happy or if he's down. It's true. But for a man, because he holds himself accountable for his wife's happiness, because he's the protector, the provider, the hero, the head, that's a big, big deal to him. And he feels like he's failing if you're not happy. It's like it's a jab to him. And whether right or wrong, good or bad, I'm just saying that's usually how it is. So when he comes home and shows appreciation for you being a stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom, because that's a thankless job. It is a thankless job. And so for him to say, wow, the house is good, the kids are happy, you got through the day, you're doing good, what a relief. Yeah. What a great place to come home to. Yeah. you know? And so many, I've heard men say it, and this is sad, but they don't want to come home at the end of the day. They had a hard day, they come home to havoc, to chaos, to an unhappy wife, to throwing the kids at the husband the minute he walks in the door because she needs a break now. And they'd rather go to the bar and have a drink first, or sit in their car for an hour mentally preparing to walk in the door. That's awful. That's awful. It's like, as women, as wives, as we do rule our home. And I know I get pushback on this from some men saying, the wife doesn't rule the house, I rule the house. No, you rule your job.
Want her to. You want her to.
And
so you don't have to come home and do it.
Yeah, but the woman, she's running the household. And women normally take responsibility. Even the women that are working, they take the responsibility for the children and the household. Yes, it's a partnership, and yes, you're both working there. But it's so very important to show each other that respect and appreciation for the different roles. And I know for me, there was a radio host, Dr. Laura Schlesinger, when I was young and having children. Listening to her show, we had moved. I didn't have a lot of friends. We moved to a new area. I think I was homeschooling at the time, or maybe my kids just started back at school. And it was kind of a lonely time for me. And I was thinking, okay, kids are in school, maybe I should go get a job. But with my husband's job, anyway, that's another story. But listening to her talk show, and she very much advocated stay-at-home moms and being there for your kids. And I needed that daily dose of encouragement. Yeah. And it literally helped me get through those years, because I felt like, remind me again why I'm doing this. Remind me again that this is a valuable, worthy job to hold. Just being at home, it wasn't just, it was very valuable. And she got me through those times. But because it is kind of a thankless job.
Yeah. So finding your tribe, finding your community, finding those that can speak into your life helps you, encourage you in the physical,
emotional and spiritual. Yes.
So many good daily habits. Thank you for sharing. I know it's your passion. We could talk about this forever and ever, but you know what? Danielle is very active on social media. So if you comment on her reels, she'll probably comment back. She sees them. Make sure you follow her on Instagram and Facebook. If you liked today's episode, share it with somebody. Share it with your spouse. Share it with your friends. Let it be an encouragement to you, and make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is coming your way.